Good morning, guys. So you are either, well, I guess the only people looking at this are going to be second and third period on Friday, April 28th. Um, I obviously am not there with you, so I wanted to make sure that you were still getting the project intro that I wanted you to have, so I decided to put a video. Now, the recording thing that I'm using only goes 15 minutes, so hopefully I can get this in very quickly and you can go ahead and get started with the work today. In lieu of a unit test like we've been doing for this last section, we are going to do a project. So the project is going to count multiple grades. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But to start out, you are going to either be working in partners or groups of 3. If you are one of those people who say, hey, can I work alone? I want to work alone. Find somebody else who wants to do that, because typically you're going to be 2 people that are really going to do good work, and you're probably going to have a good project together. So nobody's going to be working alone, either partners or groups of 3. The idea is that you are going to be designing and conducting a survey experiment. Okay, so you're going to be pulling information from responses that you get from people about questions. And the idea is that we are going to try to see, you can see the question right here. Can the wording of a question create what we call response bias? Okay, so we can change the wording of the question, we can change the characteristics of the interviewer, and I'll talk about what that means in a minute, or we can allow somebody to remain anonymous when they give their responses. This is called response bias, and the idea is that different ways of asking a question or different situations when the question is asked can actually influence the way that people respond. You have done this. You would ask your teachers something in a little bit of a different way if you wanted something, as opposed to if you were wanting the same thing from your friends. You change it in order to get a response that you like. We do this all the time. We're just going to go ahead and put it into an assignment for you. So the first thing that you're going to do, and what's going to be due today, is your proposal. Okay, as you can see, this is going to count as a quiz grade. Okay. I have a rubric for this that's got all of these things in it, but basically what you're going to be looking at is you're going to describe the experiment that you're going to do. What do you want to study? Do you want to do, I've got a group that wants to do how to get girls' phone numbers. Do you want to ask people about the way they drive or things like this? Sorry, somebody's typing to me right now as I'm recording, you can see. Anyway. We'll ignore that for right now because there's no telling what we're going to talk to each other as teachers. So we want to know what kind of experiment you're looking at doing. What do you want to study? What is your research question? Okay, and why do you think that this is a good idea? That's what it means by how do you organize your data. Why do you think that this is a good question to ask? The next thing we want a copy of the actual survey questions that you are going to be asking people. You should have 2 questions. They're going to basically ask the same thing, okay, but you need to let us know what the difference is going to be. Are you going to word a question a little bit differently, even though it's the same question? Are you going to allow somebody to remain anonymous on one versus not on the other? Are you going to change something about the person asking the question? What are you going to do? You're going to discuss how you obtain your subjects, and you need a minimal sample size of 50. Okay, you need to ask at least 50 people whatever you're doing. And then what will be your population? Who are you looking at overall? So real quick, we'll go over to the rubric so that you can see how this is going to be graded. Okay. Question design is going to be first, and you can read all these things. I'm not going to read all these things to you. You are able to read, I hope. Okay, but if you're scoring on the high end, that would get you 4 points. So this entire thing, you can get up to 12 points, or you can get as low as 0 points. 0 would be that you haven't discussed anything. So as long as you actually do something, you should be getting at least 6 points out of the 12 allowed. So you should be getting at least half credit on that. And then, of course, did you actually provide copies of the surveys? Did you tell us what questions you were asking? And you can get either 3, 2, 1, or 0 points for that. So the entire proposal score is going to be out of 15, and it's going to be a quiz grade. You are turning this in today before you walk out of the room. You will have 2 days. We'll do, today is the project overview and your time to come up with your proposal. Then the next 2 days, we are going to be working on the project in class. I'll give you two work days in class. If you need more time than that, you got to do it outside of school. We are going to require you to have a visual for this and to do an oral presentation, and that's going to happen on the last day. Okay, we'll do everybody's oral presentation, thing like that. Now, here's the deal. If you and your group are wanting to do a PowerPoint or a video or something like that, that is going to have to happen either outside of school, or you are going to have to bring a device. Your group is going to have to bring a device. I do not mean your cell phones. I don't want you sitting on your cell phones the entire class working on this. You can bring a laptop, you can bring an iPad, you can bring a Surface, whatever you want, but you are going to have to provide that. The reason being that the school has the media center, all of the laptop carts, and all of the labs taken up for EOCs right now, so we can't send you any of those places to work on this. So my suggestion is that you do a poster, and I'll show you an example of what it might look like in a minute. But you will be working, you see, create a poster to summarize your findings. Your report should include the following: an introduction, you can read what it means, methodology, results, and conclusions. Okay, we need at least those 4 things there. Now you can go relatively deep into each one of those. Those categories have a lot of stuff within them, and you'll see on the example in a minute. And then you will, again, do an oral presentation with your partner or your group, and it should be about 5 minutes long, discussing these 4 things. The poster and the oral presentation will come together to create a test grade. So you'll have the quiz grade from the proposal, a test grade from the presentation, and then for each day that you are working, the 2 days that you are working, you will get a classwork and a homework grade based on how you participate throughout the day. So if you're constantly on your cell phone, I'm constantly having to redirect you. If your group isn't being productive, it is going to affect the daily grade that you get. Okay, so let's see something that might be an example. So this group asked students, have you smoked? They changed it. Let's zoom in on it since we're pretty far out. Okay. The first thing that they did, you see, they created their own hypothesis. What do you actually think is going to happen? Okay. And their way of testing response bias is that they asked the person with their name on it, so you can kind of see. I know you can't really see it, but it actually says participant name, and the person had to put their name, and then they were asked if they had ever smoked a cigarette. And then the second thing that they did was they just gave it to them anonymously. Have you ever smoked a cigarette? So they were looking at anonymity and people being anonymous and seeing if that had an influence on how you answered. Well, it did. Okay. They were seeing that, yeah, look at their graph down here, their pie chart. Okay. Normally, when people were just asked and they had to put their name on it and everything, they had 68% of people say, nope, never smoked. Okay. That's a lot. When they made it anonymous and people felt that they could maybe be a little bit more honest, 52% of people said they smoked. Okay. So you can see that being anonymous sometimes is going to influence how you answer a question. Okay. You know that. You might not say something to somebody's face that you would say over social media. Okay. That feeling of being anonymous sometimes makes you do things or say things that you wouldn't necessarily do in another situation. That is response bias. Okay. That is what we want to be looking at. So you cannot use this example. Okay. You also cannot use the example of asking for girls' phone numbers, because that is something that some boys in 3rd period are doing. Okay, so don't steal their stuff. But start coming up. Your job today is to do your proposal. So you need to start coming up with what you're going to study, what your questions are going to be, how you're going to collect the data, who are you going to ask, things like that. Do your best to try to reduce bias. So for example, if I was asking about people in the arts and if schools should keep the art program, and I am going to say that for half of my sample, I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to be holding some type of musical instrument, and I'm going to ask them if they think the arts should be included. And then for the other one, I'm not going to hold the musical instrument. Well, I wouldn't go to the orchestra room or to the band room or to the chorus room to ask that question. That's a bias, okay? So try to reduce that and talk about how you're going to reduce that in the data collection part of your proposal, okay? Hopefully this has given you an idea of what this project is going to be about. Again, I want to be very clear, your proposal, okay, and you can go back and just kind of take a screenshot of this. Let me see if I can zoom it out enough that you can actually see it, the entire thing. Okay, so you can't see the points. This is 4, 3, 2, sorry. This is, yeah, 4, 3, 2, and 0. Okay, but just check. You can take a screenshot of this. That way you guys know what you are expected to do and how you're going to be graded on this proposal. Okay. I will record all of this kind of stuff, but this is what you're going to be expected to do. All of these things need to happen in order for you to get a perfect score on your proposal, which is a quiz grade. It is due today before you leave. Don't walk out of this room without turning it in. Okay? We will talk again later. Be good, guys.